Good to see y'all. So we have arrived. This is the Sunday before our big day of Christmas coming up, big day of celebration. And that celebration is what? Bringing that Christ, that knowledge, that love came down at Christmas into our hearts, into all of our hearts. And we are here to celebrate that. We're here to acknowledge that over 2,000 years ago, that humankind changed. They took a different path, that God brought us this love. One of the highlights that we've talked about over this last month, the different spiritual gifts that were given to us. And one of the first things that this Christmas story, and I want to emphasize that it is a Christmas story, that we can all take it as we want, if it's, right on, spot on, this happened exactly the way that is told in the Bible, or not. But I think most of it represents a metaphysical teaching of our spiritual nature. And so when we look at that Christmas story, it begins with both Mary and Joseph being visited by angels and foretelling them of what was going to be happening. And both of them listened. They took in what the message was that was given to them, and they didn't argue. This represents that spiritual gift of faith. When we go within and we listen, and we're told something that is kind of pretty amazing. I mean, can you imagine Mary and Joseph both thinking, what? What the heck? How is this going to be happening? But their faith led them to be willing. They were willing to trust. And so they were told to, go on this journey that they needed to go on. And you see, this story is universal. It's about each and every one of us. It's not about just a couple that happened 2,000 years ago. We relive this story, this teaching, every day of our lives. When we go within and we listen to that inspiration that is being given to us, and perhaps we have to go on a journey that we didn't expect. I'm sure that when Mary and Joseph got to the inn and there was no room in the inn, they were pretty disappointed, I imagine. I imagine that they wanted it to be different. It wasn't. So they found the very best place they could to give birth to this child. The stable, the manger, represents the lowliness, the everyday person. The sheep, those common animals, were there to witness this birth. This story tells us that we also are available, not only available, but honored guests of this miraculous birth. That we belong there. There is no qualification, no have to be at a certain level of whatever. The wise men came, yes, bearing gifts to honor this child. But the child was not born in a palace. The child was born in a humble heart, and that's what we have to give to this birth of love in our hearts. Mary and Joseph were willing, and I think that's what we need to learn, that we need to be willing. If something comes up in your experience that you think, be willing. because you know the difference. If you listen to that still small voice in your heart, you're going to recognize its language. You're going to be able to follow it in faith, perhaps not knowing what's going to be coming next. I want to read you a passage out of the Science of Mind magazine. When you declare that you are willing to love and accept yourself, or you are willing to embrace perfect health and wholeness into your body, you have set the law in motion without any resistance from the subconscious. I am willing to change. I am willing to trust. I am willing to love. I am willing to be whole, vibrant, and healthy. I am willing. It takes just that simple act of being willing, allowing. This love that came down, God, love, same thing, right? This message from God said each and every one of us has this love birthed in our hearts, that we all are to know this truth. You know, the other topic we talked about last Sunday, one of the gifts of this Christmas season, is joy. The joy that accepting this love into our hearts gives us. You know, when the angels, came forth and the shepherds were sore afraid. They were afraid. What's going on? This is crazy. What is all this about? And they said, don't be afraid. We're going to tell you some really good stuff happening here. Be happy. Be joyous. When we feel afraid, that is a signal, that is a sign that we have stepped away from our source, that we have thought that we are separate from our source. And that's what brings us fear. And quite frankly, in this whole scheme of the energy of the universe and that how many eons that we have lived, the human species has lived, fear and this notion of duality of good and evil and the devil's going to get me and all of that kind of thing is embedded in the race consciousness. It has been passed down from generation to generation, that you are separate, that you are not enough, that you are not worthy. It's there in our subconscious as a species. And that's where we need to remember to get rid of that, to sweep that out. Because we are worthy. We are darn worthy. And we are to stand up and accept our worth. We are to be happy, to be joyous, that my gosh, look what we have. We have been given this gift of life for us to decide what to do with it. And sure, we can decide to not believe all of these wonderful, wonderful teachings in this story, and to think that we have to do everything ourselves. We don't. We have this power in us. Many, many years ago, I lived in Yakima, Washington, and I attended a Unity church there. And in one of the lessons, I don't remember if it was a class or what it was, but we were instructed that we were to go about, not just once a day, not twice a day, but hourly, every hour, we were to say, God loves me. God loves me. God loves me. God loves me. And it was amazing because I can remember, even back then I did my walks. I would walk and changing the emphasis on the different words. God loves me. God loves me. God loves me. And it really was a transformational time for me. And it was so simple. because it gave me that recognition that, you know what, God has my back. That I am not alone. I am not separate. That this loving energy loves me so much. And so in my thought for the week, I talked about regifting this love back out into the world. And it's so simple to do. I don't know about you, but I'm sure, not just this time of year, but many times, you're on the phone with somebody, and you have to call, and you finally get to a real person that answers the phone, other than dial 1 or 2 or 5 or whatever the case might be. And you've talked to this person on the phone. Maybe they've got an accent, who knows? And what I've discovered is that if you can just engage, just a little bit, engage them in saying, well, where are you? I'm in Colorado, I'm in India, I'm wherever, and you talk about the weather, or you bring up something that's universal. And it's amazing how when you connect with people like that you don't know from Adam, how it softens. It softens their demeanor. What I love about living in Alpine, one of the things I love about living in Alpine, is that when I take my walks, people wave, I don't think you see that in every city. Well, we're a town. I suppose we're a town. I found out that because we're not an actual city, I don't really have to have a business license for my book. I thought this was something I had to check off the list. I have to get a business license. And I went down into the county of San Diego, and I'm reading the signs of everything you want, a marriage license, a death certificate, all these things, that you do at the county. And the only thing that looked relatively, close to what I thought I would want was a DBA. So I got the paperwork to fill in for my doing business as Lacey Shoelace. And then when I went to the gal and she was helping me, I said, but I need a business license. She goes, well, where do you live? I said, in Alpine. No, you don't need a business license, because if you're in the city, if you're a city, you need a license, but not, you're in an incorporated area, so you don't need a business license. So, okay, well, that's good to know. But as we engage, as we connect with people, sitting there at her desk, oh my gosh, she had pink everywhere. She had bulletin boards, she had pink paper, she had pink flowers, she had pink pens, her lipstick was pink, her nail polish was pink. And so one of the last things I said as I got up, I said, looks like you like pink, huh? I said, oh yes, pink's my color. So we need to remember to regift this love that we are, because what we'll find is that we are connecting with the other person, that love is in them, totally. Sometimes it gets hidden. Sometimes things happen in our lives that are unexpected, that we would really not prefer to have happen. And I think at that point in time, what I'm getting, the deeper lesson that I'm getting, is that we are all doing the very best we can do. Literally, at the level of consciousness that we are, because it's all about consciousness. And so if you're disappointed with yourself or with another, think about this fact that, you know what, I'm an infinite being, and I am emerging, I'm growing, I'm maturing. And if somebody else does something that is not quite to what you're understanding, well, they are expressing themselves in the level of consciousness at the maturity level that they are. And there's no need to do any sort of judgment. Christ told us, judge with right judgment. And we don't need to put ourselves down. That's the important thing. If anything else, if you're not going to remember anything else on this talk, I want you to remember, you are worthy. We are worthy of this expression of this love that we are. I had this come to me, and I kind of encapsulated it right now, but I thought I would share with you what the universe spoke to me literally this last last week. When you understand, gay, that your disappointments in another's behavior or choices always stems from their immaturity or yours, rather than have their unkindness or yours, it becomes much harder not to keep skipping through life, giddy with joy, smelling the flowers. Moreover, when you understand that with enough maturity on your end, you can always find peace in all of your relationships, it becomes much harder not to run down the street kissing everyone you meet on both cheeks. Kiss, kiss, universe. It almost sounds like a Habez or a type of a poem. But to think about that. Think about how we want to just, the universe wants to give us kisses on the cheek. And we want to run back and down the street and give kisses to each other because we have so much love spilling out of us. How many of you are ready for Christmas? Good. That's an open-ended question, isn't it? Yes, yeah. How many of you have all your gifts wrapped? Well, the same people. There is a joy, there is a faith, there is a willingness, there is an expectancy that comes with this time of year. I want us to be fully engulfed in all of it. And the cherry on top of the whipped cream is the love that we are to express and to share and to see and to acknowledge and to kiss, kiss the universe in everything that we do. Oh, Merry Christmas. Namaste.